Today we are going to be going over the endocrine system.
The most important function with the endocrine system is the release of hormones. A hormone is to excite, and they are released from the endocrine glands, and then they travel through the bloodstream.
Groups of hormones include amino acid-based hormones, which are water-soluble proteins, steroids, which are derived from cholesterol and are lipids, eicosanoids, which are paracrines or local hormones that include leukotrienes, which promote inflammation, and prostaglandins, which raise blood pressure and help clot platelets.
There are 4 different terms that you're going to need to know for target cell specificity, and they are target cells, which are cells that respond to a particular hormone. Then there are receptors, and those are proteins that bind to the hormone, and they can be found inside and outside of the cell. There's also upregulation, which occurs when target cells make more receptors for those hormones, and that makes them more sensitive to a hormone. And downregulation is the opposite, which means that that occurs when target cells make less receptors for hormones, and that makes them less sensitive to a hormone.
The second messenger system. The hormone will first bind to a receptor on the target cell. This then causes the G protein to act as a transducer and activate adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase makes CAMP from ATP, which then the enzymatic reaction then occurs and then directs the target cells on what to do.
You also have direct gene activation, which has 5 different steps. That starts with hormones that moves into the target cell. It then binds with the receptor to form a complex. Then the receptor complex moves into the nucleus, and then that hormone binds to the DNA of the target cell, which causes the production of specific protein.
The control of hormone release with endocrine gland stimuli include 3 stimuli. First one is humoral, which measures levels in fluids and monitors levels of ion and nutrients in blood. The next one is neural, which are neurons that stimulate the release of hormones. And then the last one is hormonal, which are hormones from one endocrine gland that can stimulate the release of hormones from another endocrine gland.
All the endocrine gland organs include the pituitary, the thyroid, the parathyroid, adrenal glands, pancreas, gonads, the pineal gland, and the thymus.
This is the pituitary gland, posterior and anterior, the hormones that it produces and what they do. So we're going to start with oxytocin, which targets the uterus and the breasts. When it targets the uterus, it causes labor contractions. And when it targets the breast, it causes milk letdown. Next, we have antidiuretic hormone, which targets the kidney tubules and causes H2O reuptake. After that, we have prolactin, which targets the breast and then causes milk production. We also have FSH-LH, which all you need to know is that it causes the release of reproductive hormones. Next, we have growth hormone, which targets general body cells and causes growth, especially in bone and muscle. Next, we have thyroid stimulating hormone, which targets the thyroid gland, produces T3 and T4, and targets general body cells and causes an increase in BMR, also known as basal metabolic rate. Next, you have the adrenocorticotropic hormone, which targets the cortex of the adrenal gland and produces cortisol, which targets general body cells and then causes healing. Next, you have fear, which targets the medulla of the adrenal gland and produces epinephrine and norepinephrine, and then causes your fight or flight response. Lastly, the adrenal cortex also produces aldosterone, which then targets the kidney tubules and causes sodium reuptake. And that is the pituitary gland, its hormones, and what it does.
The clinical problems of the pituitary gland are gigantism, which is hypersecretion of the growth hormone as a child, acromyalgia, which is hypersecretion of the growth hormone as an adult, pituitary dwarfism, which is hyposecretion of the growth hormone as a child, and diabetes insipidus, which causes problems with the antidiuretic hormone, where you're not able to conserve water and that makes you pee a lot all the time.
Next, we have the thyroid, which includes the structures. You have two lobes, and then you have the isthmus, which connects the two lobes, the follicles, which are the functional unit of the thyroid gland, including the thyroglobulin and thyroid hormone, and then the parafollicular cells, which produce calcitonin. The two main hormones that are produced by the thyroid include the thyroid hormone, also known as TH, and calcitonin. Clinical problems include hypothyroidism, which is too low of the thyroid hormone being produced. It is known as cretinism when it happens in infants and myxedema in adults. Hyperthyroidism is the opposite and is also called Graves' disease, where too much thyroid hormone is produced and there's an increased metabolic rate and heart rate.
So today I'm going to tell you how your body regulates blood sugar levels and blood calcium levels. So coming over here to blood sugar levels, if your blood sugar is too high, your body then targets beta cells. And then these beta cells produce a substance called insulin. And then that insulin lowers your blood sugar level. And on the other side, if your blood sugar level is too low, your body targets alpha cells. And these alpha cells produce glucagon. And that glucagon raises your blood sugar level. And then, if we come over here to blood calcium levels, if your blood calcium is too high, your body then targets parafollicular cells. And these parafollicular cells produce calcitonin. And that calcitonin lowers your blood calcium level. And then, if your blood calcium level is too low, your body then targets the parathyroid gland. And the parathyroid gland then produces parathyroid hormone, or PTH for short. And PTH then raises your blood calcium level. And that's how your body regulates both blood calcium levels and blood sugar levels.
The parathyroid glands have two important structures that you need to know. The chief cells, which secrete parathyroid hormone, and the oxyphil cells, which their function is unknown. Their most important hormone is the parathyroid hormone.
Next, we have the pancreas. The main structures are the alpha cells, which produce glucagon, the beta cells, which produce insulin, and the delta cells, which produce somatostatin. The main hormones with the pancreas include glucagon, which action is to raise sugar levels, insulin, which lowers sugar levels, and somatostatin, which shuts down the production of pancreatic enzymes. Clinical problems include diabetes mellitus, which is a different variation of diabetes, often associated with hypersecretion of glucose in your urine. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease that generally is from genetic predisposition. It is a juvenile onset insulin dependent diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is an adult onset non-insulin dependent diabetes, which usually is developed in adulthood by people that are more than 20% over their recommended BMI.
Lastly, we will be looking at the pineal gland, which location is posterior to the thalamus in the brain, and the function is to regulate the sleep and wake cycle.
To conclude this, we have the thymus, which is location is the upper anterior part of the chest, deep to the sternum and between the lungs. Its main hormones is thymopoietins and thymosins that promote the maturation of T cells, also known as the ninja training school for T cells.